This is the D Word Podcast. The name is Deon, and welcome to this podcast. And if you've never checked out a podcast before, my goal here is to share with you some truths about life. I don't have guests on my podcast. It's just me and my microphone, and I love to share truths. Sometimes whenever I do talk about these topics on radio and you get to hear people's stories, you can't help but wonder, I wonder if I could actually relay some of these conversations somewhere. And that's where these podcasts come in. So I don't claim to know all the answers to everything. However, whatever I do share on my podcast is built on some sort of experience that I do have in it. I'm going to say this up front. There's no such thing as a perfect relationship. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as a perfect human being who can give you the perfect relationship. There can be a calculated way of finding a relationship, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you will find the answers or the end result as to what your heart wants versus what your eyes see. There's a lot that has been shared in that opening line of my podcast, right? But let's be honest. Is there such a thing as the perfect relationship? Is there such a thing as the perfect relationship? I'm going to share with you a small little story of my own view of a relationship. And if I'm very honest with myself, I had a very warped perception of a relationship. And that was built too much on watching what Hollywood says that you should expect in a relationship. Hollywood makes it seem that a relationship is like a fairy tale. You'll find the person in the most weirdest circumstances, and then they will like you for who you are, and then fall in love, and then you'll have a fairy tale situation, and then that's it. Let me be honest. That only happens in the movies. It never happens in reality. Now, if I were to be very blunt about something that I've experienced, I, like many people, had expectations of what a relationship should be. And if it didn't have the trailer to what you can expect, you somehow say this is not for you. I also have been part of the statistic who didn't really find the right people first, and I somehow lived with a lot of hurt. And I know there are many people in the same phase. That is one of the reasons why I'm talking about this today. And we're going to hover over the hurt part first. If somebody hurt you in a relationship, it doesn't necessarily mean that every other person you're going to meet will treat you the same. I also was there. I felt that I was scared to go in a relationship. I've been hurt once. And I felt that if I'm hurt once, I could possibly get hurt again. That is true. You can get hurt again. But you cannot label everybody in your future with the same cast of your past if they haven't been there. They don't know you. They don't know where you've been. But if you advertised your hurt, you probably will scare people away. Potential people who could be a great match for you. So in this podcast today, I'm going to share with you a few things about that. Firstly, hurt is something we all will go through in a relationship sometime or the other. Hopefully it's not betrayal. My personal view, betrayal is unforgivable in the situation where you cannot give the person another chance. That's my view. Some people will want to. But as you get older, you realize that there's certain things you should require in a relationship. The first step is, if you've been hurt by somebody and you haven't gotten over that person, take time to heal before you go to somebody else. I took about 4 years of healing before I found my now wife. And the reason why I took the 4 years of healing is because I actually was honest with myself, and I said, I need to get over what I've been through. And until I have a good relationship with myself and I understand what makes me happy, then somebody else will be ready to accept what I have to offer. The same goes for you. Maybe you saying, hey, I am that person who's hurt and I don't want to date somebody because I feel if I date somebody, they're going to hurt me. That's not true. That is built on lots of insecurity. And the only way you can get over that is by one, understanding that the person who hurt you is not in your life. The person who hurt you is the person who really is the person you should be scared of, not the potential people who could come in your life that could actually change the way you look at relationships. Now, before I met my wife, I actually didn't think I would find anybody because I was pretty much content being single and living life the way it was. I mean, there were times where I felt like life would be much more fun if I had someone to share it with. And I'll never forget praying about it. And I said, God, if I'm meant to be with somebody, show it to me. And I think God was saying to me, heal first. Nobody wants to date somebody who's hovering on their past hurt. Somebody wants at least to have somebody on a slate where they say, hey, this is who you are. I trust you. You trust me. Let's get to know each other. And from there, we'll build trust in what we have, not with the T's and C's of something from our past. So I touched on dealing with your hurt on your own. Remember, you need to make yourself happy, not a partner. If a person doesn't know you, how can they make you happy? And how can they wipe away the hurt of somebody else? You need to fix that on your own. So if you are dating somebody, make sure you are healed from the person who hurt you. You're not going to be perfectly aligned, but at least you learn to deal with the baggage from your past. Once you do that, then obviously look at the next step of a potential relationship. Don't look at what the paperwork says, like the person has stepped this, the person has stepped that, the person has stepped this. Remember, we're in the year 2023. If you have expectations in a relationship and it's not mutual, you will have a problem. So don't expect someone to have this if you don't even have it yourself. I know it sounds rich what I'm saying, but it's true because you can't expect a person to have so much of X, Y, Z, and you don't even have that if you are asked the same question. Now, I'm not saying you should not have expectations. You should have at least reasonable expectations that are not too materialistic. Because let's be honest, materialistic people tend to push away people. When people say, I want somebody with this, I want someone with that, and if the person who you're potentially going to date hears that, they're probably going to turn the other way. Now, I'm not here to define what you should look for in a relationship. I'm here to tell you a few things that you should look for. Number one, if you have healed from your past and you find somebody who you are interested in, make sure you get to know the person for who they are. The physical side will fade. As you get older, your body will age. So make sure that the conversation is key. Make sure the person's interesting. Make sure you'll share the same belief systems. Some of those things you only can learn when you talk to the person. Now, it's not about the typical questions. What do you like to do for fun? You will discover what that person does for fun because if you're dating the person, you will experience it. But try and understand, what are their passions? What are their goals? What are their intentions in dating you? What are their expectations in dating you? And what are some of their goals that they want to attain with you in the future? Those are some of the simple things you should do when you're dating somebody. And if you get those parts right, in the order I've mentioned, where if you have been hurt, you healed. If you don't have anybody, that's okay. If you have reasonable expectations, if you have all this in a simple form, without putting too much pressure on the person, you will find relationships are quite okay. And I'm not saying that relationships will be easy at first. You're getting to know somebody. So have that at the back of your mind that when you get to know somebody, you're getting to know the person as a brand new person you've never met before, but you want to learn about them. So take the time to understand them. And as you date somebody, in your dating phase, whatever you're experiencing, understand that this is a wonderful experience. So cherish every single moment of it. Don't put pressure on the relationship by saying, okay, now I expect this because we're dating for this long. This is not a shopping transaction. It's a human being that's sharing life with you. And if you want to make sure that all those things are done the right way, let nature take its course. But always give what you expect in return. And what I mean by that is, if you put the effort into seeing the person often and getting to know them, make sure it's mutual. If you understand where you'll want to be in life, make sure it's mutual. And make sure you guys communicate. Communication is so key. This is one podcast that I think there's many other parts to it. But I just wanted to talk about relationships in general, and don't make it complicated. And the reason why I'm saying this on this podcast is because I have a lot of people who have been hurt, and they're so scared to be in a relationship, but they don't understand that the person who hurt them, their damage is living within them if they haven't taken the time to understand that. So remember that it isn't going to be easy if you've been hurt, but be realistic now. If you are going to be dating somebody in the times we're in, make sure you're honest about your intentions, what you expect, and what are some of your love languages. Because sometimes your love language in a relationship could be very different to what the person expects. So there's a book about your love languages by Gary Chapman. Google it, do some research on it, and then take it from there. I will talk more about relationships in weeks to come in my podcast, but I felt that today I'm going to leave you with a takeaway. If you've never found the person yet, I want to give you hope. Firstly, pray about it. Then ask yourself, what version of me am I willing to give somebody new in a relationship? And the other part of that question is, if I'm ready to be in a relationship, I should have reasonable expectations and not things that are far-fetched. If you get some of those questions correct, and if you meet people, make sure you don't bring your past hurt into the conversation. Your past hurt is a red flag. And if you are living in your hurt, make sure you heal first before you consider a relationship. Because the more hurt you talk about with a potential new person, you are just pushing someone away who could potentially be somebody who you could date. So think about that today. As you leave this podcast, it's a short one, but I will say this to you. When you find the right person who's made for you, and if they see you the way you see them and it's mutual, nothing or anyone else outside can change what you feel, that is the person you are meant to be with. Love is real. Finding true love is also real, but it takes the ability of being mutual about how you feel and sharing that with the person that matters the most, which is your partner. I hope this short little podcast was good enough for you, and I hope you could take away something from it. And if you've been checking out the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcast, or Apple Podcast, make sure you subscribe for weekly episodes. And I will be throwing a bonus episodes now and again, so make sure you look out for that. And if you've been watching it on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to that channel. Thanks for checking out the D-Word Podcast. Until next time, good luck in your relationship hunt. And I hope that you find the person who's made just for you. Until next time, take care.